There's all this stuff that we missed, and just because we were doing a live show and just talking off the cuff, and we apologize, we got it wrong.
And being able to expand further depth on the subject is also incredibly important.
Yeah.
I don't think I've done anything yet to go into
I like trying to start conversations with the audience too. Get them to feel like they can write to me and start a conversation, and that we can actually talk about something.
Yeah, trust is about personal interactions. People have practical conversations.
There's a lot of questions about trust and how we can have people better trust good sources of science. But it seems to me that and Greg mentioned this a little bit earlier, is that it's not just about a management of trust, but also a management of distrust. Distrust is something we want to encourage as well, because that's part of what critical thinking is. We want people to question sources so that they can be able to come to their own conclusions of what are good sources of science. And at the same time, the sources that are good sources of science, you guys, set yourselves up in a way that increases your levels of trust, so that when these people are doing the questioning and distrusting the sources, that they come to the conclusion of their own accord that you guys are the good sources that should be paying attention to.
So we should get a brand, underwriter approved blog. Then we should get a question mark brand that goes on the other blogs.
That's part of what I do is I sit there and trash Ken Ham, Casey Luskin, Ray Comfort, and the reason we do that is let's expose these guys as the clowns they are. Listening to the sources about science.
I think the Michael, is it Egnor?
Michael Egnor.
The Michael Egnor story is a good example. It was some kind of a physician, doctor guy, a guy who is intelligent design.
Yes.
And
he's apparently a very good neurosurgeon. So he's
he's
a successful practice.
But just go ahead and Google him now. See what you can.
There's one thing that I should also mention is there are things that we do that cognitively make people not trust us. The fact that we don't equivocate, but we, come out and say, this is what we understand in these circumstances, and it's a much less straightforward statement, and therefore it's just less likely to be trusted. And so when we do that, we might also want to educate people as to why they may not trust us when we do that. That it's a bias that they have. It's not something that they can control. It's not anything that we can control, but it's not a reasonable reason for distrusting us.
So I just want to go back a little bit to the notion of all scientists tweeting or blogging or whatever. And I mean, clearly that's not going to solve all the problems. But the individual trust is not the only part of this. It is in interacting with scientists and personalizing scientific research as opposed to ivory tower over there, the people who know everything coming out and saying what the truth is, and then they're left without any real interaction. And so the comments, like some people have just said, the feedback that you get in between people about some comment when you're blogging or tweeting, I think that helps with individual trust, but it also builds up just the general comfort level that people have with scientists, which we have, as a community, have not been particularly good at doing in many fields. I mean, there's some fields where it's done very well, and there are other fields where it's not done very well. And I think that part of it is very useful to the broader scientific community, to demystify science and have people both understand it as well as the people who do it.
Yeah, that community building thing also helps because suddenly you have a bunch of allies on your website. You can send a Vito Henry disagree and so forth. But it's also something where they build up an identity that's associated with science rather than pseudoscience. You win. It's a great plus to it.
So all of you have said what actions you've taken that you think increase trust. But going back to the very first comments from Greg about how we're sort of paternalistically trying to raise the unwashed masses who are searching on Google, how do you know that you're actually increasing trust in people that aren't already in the choir? How do you know you're not just reinforcing, you're identifying people who already are inclined to trust you, and inclined to trust people like you. But it sounds like from the start that you're not really trying to reach that audience. You're trying to reach a somewhat different audience that isn't necessarily already inclined to trust you based on the clarity of your thought.
Yeah, that also speaks to this point as well. I think that, I mean, we do have, I mean, unspoken, because it's obvious to all of us already, is that there is a geekdom, you know, there's a people who are already there, already with us. And they are the ones that, you know, not only find, they're the ones that will do Google Scholar instead of Google, and they're the ones who are already kind of with us, and the ones that are commenters on our websites, and the ones that listen to the radio shows. And, which, by the way, I think that that's a resource. I mean, I think that, you know, we could be like a cult and get every single one of those people to go and get 2 more members and then to expand. But we do not know who reads our blogs. We do not know who we're reaching, and we don't know who we're not reaching. And we can make guesses and we can make estimates, but we don't know if we had the choice to spend, you know, X dollars from some source to capture the interest of 10% of the population of the United States. Who would we pick? Which 10%? You know, would we pick? Would we pick a region, or would we pick a demographic? You know, and I don't even know that we know who's not. We don't know who's ignoring us. We don't know who's paying attention to us.
I get anecdotal stories because I get lots of testimonials sent to me from people who say, "Yeah, you won me over. You convinced me." But my general impression is that you know, when you look at the population at large, you discover that there's the nerds over here, like us, and there's the hardcore anti-science, pseudo-scientific crowd over here, but the majority of the people in this country are nerds. And they're the ones that you persuade. And again, I can't give you statistics. I don't have a statistic. All I can say is that for some people, I work, and probably for a different group of people, they work, saying, you guys work for other people. It's all this ganging up.
I'll say that the comments that I fight for are the ones that are, I don't know that I agree with you, but I really appreciate the way we've had this discussion. Those are, I'm not going to convert people. I'm just not. But knowing that the way the discussion is had is also important to me. And so those are the comments that
I find that with my radio show, the people, This Week in Science, the people who have the most complaints about the way that we talk about science and the way that we present it are scientists. Because I'm not trying to talk to scientists, because scientists already, they're the echo chamber. They can go read science. They can go read somebody else's blog. They already know how to go get information.
they can build rationalizations you'll never tear down.
Yes. Yeah, and so to me, I look at so many complaints that I have, and I'm like, you know, great criticism, but I'm not talking to you. My goal is not to reach you. My goal is to reach these other people, and I'm not going to reach them speaking with the same words or the same thought patterns as I would if I were speaking at a scientific presentation or speaking to a strictly scientific audience. I mean, there's when you're a scientist, you learn to think about things in a very different way. It's a methodology. And
no, you don't. You study critical thinking. It's the same thing.
It depends if you were raised with the Talmud or not. I mean, there are different, or Jesuit. I mean, there are plenty of traditions of critical thought besides science. And some of us were raised with some of them, and some of them have no affiliation with any group, and we were just raised as critical thinkers. But it's not it's a learned set of skills, and it's not unique to science.
no, it's not unique to science, but I'm just saying that the way that you go about reaching people who are not already trained in a particular way of thought is not to, I don't believe it's to just directly bash them with that method of thought. You have to get their attention and their appreciation, and then you can start talking to them. They're not going to talk to you until you can get them to like you.
I wouldn't say that's necessarily because I do a live call-in show.
Yes.
So I get you get a sense of who's listening, and they don't always agree with you at all. And they're not necessarily nasty. They have real legitimate questions that they maybe haven't thought about before. And since we do bring scientists on, and we do bring experts on, they can interact. I just facilitate the process. And it seems to work well. There are some fights.
Jason, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so Cory Doctorow wrote a lot about this in his Down Not the Magic, into his concept of movie, social capital as it's meant.